say it was like, it's like a company, but I couldn't read what was on. So, but like, say it was like all the planning commission.
All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call?
Okay, Ingilke,
Here.
Egner,
Here.
Jaeger, Vidal, Stokes, Little, here, Mercer,
Here.
McGann, no.
All right, so now we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody will stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. I hope everybody's had a chance to look over the previous minutes from our 7:25 meeting. Once y'all have, if we have a motion to accept.
Chairman,
Yes.
I've got a couple of vanity changes to the minutes.
Okay.
On page 3 and page 6, my name was spelled wrong. Page 3, about almost to the bottom. E-G-N-E-R. It's not unusual for people to want to put a
What
D
is
in
it?
there.
What is it?
And on page 6, same thing. So right at the top. E-G-N-E-R is the spelling.
That was a typo, my typo.
Any other changes? All right, do we have a motion to accept the minutes with changes?
Yes, motion to accept with all the changes.
Okay, we have a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call, please.
Egner,
Yes.
Jaeger, Vidal, here, Stokes,
Yes.
Little, yes, Mercer,
Yes.
McGann.
Okay, old business. Case number 2079 is being postponed again at least till September. Any discussion on that? All right, well, do we need to make a vote to do that, or do we just move on? Oh, I think.
We could actually ask for a request for September, so let me take action.
Okay. So do we have a motion on case number 2079 to, do we have, to table it till September?
I make a motion to table case number 2079 to September.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Egner,
Yes.
Jaeger, Vidal, Stokes,
Yes.
Little, yes, Mercer,
Yes.
McGann, absent.
All right, motion passed. On to new business. Case number 2092, a request for site plan and design review for the proposed storage land at approximately 2380 Nail Road West by York Developments, landowner and developer, IDP Solutions engineer, consisting of 9.3 acres plus or minus. The subject parcel is currently zoned as PUD, Planned Unit Development District. I will now turn this over to our Director Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Evening, Planning Commissioners. Chad Barr, Planning Director. So we'll just get started with this case. And what I'll do tonight on most of the cases, since we've seen a lot of the formats previously, I may skip over some of the slides. But feel free if you have any questions at any time to ask, or at the conclusion of the presentation, if there's anything that you need to have clarification on. So what we do with these site plan design reviews, I break them down into 3 phases or 3 parts. So here we have the architectural standards first. Next slide. So we've got 2 items here. One is the mechanical systems for this particular request. And so the standard in the zoning ordinance is that the mechanical systems would not be visible from road right-of-way, public road right-of-way. So if that could be clarified by the applicant. And then number 2, so we have a 20% minimum glass requirement on a public-facing facade. They came in at 17.4, so they're slightly under that. So we would ask them to revise to meet that standard. Next slide. So this slide is showing other facades, showing the west and the rear, which would be the north facade. And again, you see that south facade there at the bottom on that particular slide. So the next part of the review is the site plan or layout of the property. Next slide. And this is a note from the zoning ordinance stating that a site plan, if approved, is good for 1 year. Next slide. So here, excuse me, in this particular case, we see 2 items. They've provided some details in some of the other drawings of exterior lighting. We would ask them if they could do like a photometric plan that shows that the lighting would be basically kept on the subject property. That's under number 1. And then number 2 is the drainage or stormwater plan. And they're showing a detention pond up in the very northwest corner of the property. You can see the subject property, it's kind of laid out there with Hurt Road on the left side of this slide, which is the west side, and then along the south is Nail Road. And what I've tried to do on that particular slide is where they're showing all of the covered parking or storage areas. I've kind of highlighted that in that kind of bright pink color. To show that, and then they've got the main building location, and with the the proposed parking down in the kind of the south part or southeast part of the property. Next slide. And then the third component of the site plan design review is the landscaping. So it talks why we have that slide talks about why we have landscaping and what the city is seeking. Next slide. So here we've got, by the zoning ordinance itself, a streetscape type A for the south and west sides of the property. And as far as what they have got proposed, it does meet as far as width and the plantings. And then number 2, the buffer yard for the northwest corner of the property. As far as what they're also proposing up in that northwest corner is also met. Next slide. And so here a possible motion for the Planning Commission could be to recommend approval of the request, but if you do so, staff is recommending the following conditions be attached to it. There's 5 of them. Number 1, revised plans to show mechanical systems and said systems must be screened from public view. Number 2, increase the glass as a building material to meet the 20% design requirement for the front, which is the south side facade. Number 3, provide exterior lighting details, including a photometric plan that meets the city design standards, basically no light pollution onto adjacent parcels. Number 4, provide drainage and stormwater calculations for review by the city engineer and build improvements according to those reviews. And number 5, I didn't detail it here, but there was a letter dated July the 21st of this year from the Neil Schaefer Engineering Review Firm. And so we would ask that they would meet the 8 items laid out in that particular letter. And that would conclude the presentation unless you have any questions.
All right, does any commissioners have questions for Director Barr? All right, is the applicant here? You can come up front. Just give me your name and address.
Chance Walker, 8180 Airways Boulevard, South Haven.
there anything you would like to add to this report?
Yeah, so all 5 comments, the mechanical systems will be placed on the roof. The architect is still working through his final plans, but I've seen them, they're on the roof, non-visible to the public. The photometric plan, I got that as soon as I left, so I can send that to Mr. Chad tomorrow morning. Drainage calculations, grading a drainage plan was sent today once I received these comments. And then the Neil Schaefer letter, that's also a work in progress. We're working on those as well.
And what about the 20% glass on the south side?
Yep, that will be met. I believe a rough calculation was 17.4. We'll go back and revise that, but we'll make sure it's at least 20.
Any questions from any other commissioners?
Chairman,
Yes.
what were the 8 items in the letter from Neil Schaefer?
A lot of them had to do with noting who to call for erosion control inspection, sewer tap, water tap. I believe a few of them had to do with, it was a lot of notes regarding erosion control. Nothing had to do with the site plan. That's typically, we get in that stage once everything's approved. That's city engineering approval. So realistically, that is kind of early for that, but yeah, he found 8 items for erosion control and noting for Neil Schaefer to come inspect after erosion control has been installed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And I know it's a tired subject, but sidewalks,
There's yeah, so we have a sidewalk on Hurt Road. However, we actually, our original plans were we were going to improve Hurt Road and Nail, add sidewalks. According to Neil Schaefer, they do not want us to improve Hurt Road or add a sidewalk or curb and gutter. So
is there a reason why?
Hurt Road doesn't have any on that area, so.
Yeah, I think my concern is there's a school there, so I'm, you know.
Mr. Barr, you have anything to say?
Yeah, the comment from Neil Schaefer dating from that July 21st letter, the first one is, no improvements on Hurt Road, including curb and gutter and sidewalks, will be required. So obviously, that's still up to the Planning Commission, if you'd still like to require that. I mean, obviously, at the subdivision stage, we brought out the need or the requirement to put in sidewalks. Obviously, through the engineering review, they felt there was some reason there that they didn't require it. I don't know why that is. So.
I'd like to know the reason why it's not required, because if we're going to, require these other businesses and the other, the residential all to have sidewalks, I don't see why they should get a pass.
One time, not one time, but lots of times what I do is when we send out for referral for comments, and sometimes we'll get, let's say, engineering will say one thing and fire will say another thing. And so obviously, to me, it's nice that there's an odd number of reviewing agencies or that could potentially comment. Then I'll make the final vote, if you will, on some things that don't rise to the level of the Planning Commission's purview. And so in this case, that might be one of them. In this case, I don't have any feedback from fire as far as their sentiments, as far as sidewalks or whatever. At least for planning, I'm always, if it's if it's possible, it's always good to have sidewalks, and obviously the middle school is there, right across the street to the west. And so I would always advocate that. If we can have a developer put something like that in, I think that would be advantageous to the city. And to the public over the course of time, something gets developed. So,
And we know they'll be on that side of the street, because eventually something's going to be built in that corner. And so, they're already walking down the street and in the grass, so.
They are.
And I don't see why we need to do an exception for one company when we're not doing exceptions for the other ones, so.
Any other comments? Questions?
Go ahead.
So can we have the sidewalk at number 6 as part of
Can you talk into the microphone?
Can we add the sidewalk as number 6?
So
When we
our
vote on this
plans,
motion?
our design shows the sidewalk and curb.
Oh, we're getting the sidewalk.
Submitting it to the city, they came back and said, don't do that.
So where's-
Our plans currently have that in there.
Okay, well, we do want the sidewalk, I would think.
And based on the area, the isolated area that it's in, because of course the school's not open at nighttime, you know, Newlyweds is not cranked up at nighttime. What is your plan for security in that area?
They have 24-hour security.
Okay.
I mean, it's a self-storage, drive-up units, covered RVs, boat storage, and conditioned, so it's 24-hour security.
Okay.
It's a really, really nice building. They have cameras all the way around it. Nice lighting. I mean, it's really nice.
Okay, so they'll actually have someone physically on property?
Yes.
Okay,
They have someone that drives around and makes sure no one's in the parking lot, and it's also gated.
okay.
Any other questions, comments? All right, do we have a motion?
You want to, or? Okay. After review of application case number 2092, SPDR, a site plan design and landscape review request for a light industrial shop use at 2380 Nail Road West by York Developments, landowner and developer, IPD Solutions Engineer, consisting of 9.3 acres plus or minus, where the subject parcel is currently zoned as PUD, Planned Unit Development District. The Horn Lake Planning Commission approves of said request with the following conditions attached to it. That's going to be 1 through 5 as stated in the notes, and an additional number 6 for installation of a sidewalk on Nell Road and Hurt Road.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Egner,
Yes.
Yeager, absent. Vidal,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes?
Little, yes. Mercer,
Yes.
McGinn, absent.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, sir. All right, on to case number 2094, a request for subdivision final plat named DeSoto Commons A-8, commercial subdivision located approximately at 6180 Interstate Boulevard in Horn Lake by Creative Constructions LLC, developer and owner, and Houston Engineering P. LLC Engineering Company for land zone as planned unit development or PUD, consisting of approximately 3 acres plus or minus. And once again, I will turn this over to Director Barr.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we're shifting gears. That last case was a site plan design review. So in this case, we've got a subdivision final plat. So I'm just noting that mentally. Let me go ahead and scroll there. Yeah, so what we've got here is kind of like what we have with the other case, but this is unique because it's a subdivision. It's basically, you know, showing the city's subdivision of a minor subdivision, which that's the case here, with one lot that's proposed. Go ahead and scroll. More on that definition on that slide. Go ahead. And I also put in the procedure for recording a final plat when it gets to that point in the process. Yeah, there we go. Just a couple lines. Yeah, there we go. And so on this particular slide, you're showing actually what is proposed, which is the final plat, excuse me, consisting of 3 acres, and it's one lot. Minimal floodplain at play. So to get it better on the screen and try to make the picture larger, I've turned the orientation, if you will. So what you're seeing is on the right-hand side of the slide is you get, it's pointing to the north. If you could go back up. Yeah, thank you. The zoning is PUD, as stated earlier, which is Planned Unit Development. Horn Lake Water Association for both water and sewer. And you can see the highlighted area in blue as the actual area. You can see this is the area in town where Nail Road comes kind of into an end, and it curves and sweeps over and turns into Interstate Boulevard. You have the flashing light, yellow light out there, just to kind of orient yourself. Next slide. So now we get into various sections from the city's subdivision regulations. And so here under this number 1, this section 3458 talks about easements. And what's proposed is met, so that's a good thing. The next one here talks about general suitability. Like I've stated before, this is kind of like a double check on the zoning or the character of the neighborhood. So in this particular case, to the west of the subject property is volunteer grass and trees. If you go farther to the west is an actual career and technological school or center. To the north is still PUD zoning. Again, we have volunteer trees and grass. To the east, we have PUD, but it's developing as light industrial in the form of 2 large warehouses. And you can just scroll just a little bit. Yeah, and then to the south, we also have a new road, and then the volunteer grass and trees. The road actually would be Nail Road. It would just kind of come down and turn and go to the east. And then some other changes on this particular slide. Number 3, we would have them change note number 7 from plat area A-9 to A8. That's more accurate. Number 4 changes the utility notes that the water and sewer providers would be the Horn Lake Water Association and not the city of Horn Lake itself. Number 5, update the lower right side title block or square to state the plat is located within the southwest quarter of section 36 and not the northwest quarter. And also, I had a question there. There was supposed to be was there supposed to be a quarter locator listed there? That's what the question. I guess I'd have a question for the developer's engineer. Number 6, the PUD setbacks should read 50 feet from the front, and then the side and rear yards at 10. Even though there's no technical subdivision requirement for setbacks. And this is kind of brings on an interesting debate, if you will, from the planners. Some planners really like the setbacks listed on the plat because that gives obviously valuable information to people that could be looking at it in the future. Then there's another camp, if you will, that would rather not have the setbacks at all. Our subdivision regulations don't state one way or the other. I guess the more I'm thinking about it, it might be nice not to have any setbacks listed on the plat. And the reason for that is if it ever got rezoned to another zoning classification, that zoning classification may carry with it its own set of setbacks. So sometimes I'm thinking anymore that it might be best, especially as active as we're seeing, and we're going to see more zoning requests next month in the city, where the setbacks on the plat, maybe it might be best to just leave them off. Okay, moving on to number 7. We're getting into the actual minimum standards through the subdivision regulations, which deals with drainage, sidewalks, a lot of stuff we see typically from case to case. I'll just let people read that slide there. But the existing wording should suffice regarding the topic of drainage as far as what's been proposed on the plat. There's no sidewalks shown on the plat, but they do actually physically exist in the area. We would ask that the engineer, the applicant, would label the existing sidewalks upon the plat, specifically on sheet 2. Next slide. Moving on to other minimum standards, in this particular case, water supply and sanitary sewer. They do note water and sewer on both sheets of the plat, but they say the city of Horn Lake would be the provider. As stated earlier, we would ask that they change that to the Horn Lake Water Association Incorporated as the provider. Next slide. Minimum standards, in this case, item K, which deals with erosion and sediment control. They do talk about this somewhat, but we would ask if they would add the word sediment. That's important. Next slide. So that gets us to the possible motion, which we're recommending basically a possible pathway of approval, but with the following changes attached to it. Letter A, change survey note number 7 from area A-9 to A-8. Letter B, change utility notes that the water and sewer providers would be the Horn Lake Water Association and not the city of Horn Lake. Item C, update the lower right title block square to state the plat is located within the southwest quarter of section 36 and not the northwest quarter. Item D, the PUD setback should read front 50 feet, side and rear at 10 feet. Please update in all spots on the plat. Item E, label the existing sidewalk upon the plat on sheet 2, and then F there to the note number 2 about meeting city standards about drainage and erosion control, add the term sediment control as well. That would be on sheet 1. That would conclude the presentation unless there be any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Director Barr?
I just have 2 questions. Where is this in relation to the gas station that was approved?
This would be the gas station.
Okay.
Yes, good question.
All right, and also just a general question, and you may not know the answer to it, is anything planned in the future to make this road a little safer to travel?
Good question. I don't know of anything, that's in the works. I mean, obviously, as the warehouses developed, there'll be actually a new road, which would be Nail Road, and it would turn the corner, and it would go to the east, and then they would have a temporary cul-de-sac for fire apparatus turnaround possibility. So that part will be all new. Staff is aware that either on Nail Road that exists now or Interstate Boulevard, there's obviously some areas that over time they've settled real bad. And the person has to be really careful, whether it be in a regular passenger vehicle or a semi, that if you don't pay attention, you could get real bucked in the seat, really. I remember that myself when I moved to town. I drove that and I tried to find a better pathway, in those 3 lanes or whatever that was safer. And sometimes that was a hard and difficult thing. So hopefully it's on like engineering's list or public works list to revisit in the future to make some of those areas better, because they've obviously settled in the 20-some years that the road or so has been there. But that's a very good question.
Any other questions or comments for Director Barr? Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Just state your name and address, please.
Byron Houston, Houston Engineering, P.O. Box 3087, Oxford, Mississippi, 38655.
Good evening. So do you have anything you'd like to add to Director Barr's presentation?
I think Director Barr covered everything, and we will take care of all these items.
Anybody have any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, the gas station is kind of located on that curve, which is actually the most dangerous part going around, because when you swing around, you'll be in the other lane. What are your plans? I noticed you didn't label the sidewalk. How far is your sidewalk gonna come out, and how will that affect the flow of traffic going, on that curve?
The sidewalk is already there, and the thought was that eventually this will just be an intersection of a road, and it'll just be like a T right there. Interstate Boulevard will continue this way. Nail Road will continue on into the two warehouses that are proposed, and we haven't done any preliminary layouts yet, but as soon as we do, we'll submit to the city and coordinate with the director's office to make sure that we meet y'all's requirements.
Okay, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
Go ahead.
After review of the applicant case number 2094 SDFP, a request for a Lot 1 commercial subdivision final plat called the DeSoto Commons, A8, commercial subdivision at about 6180 Interstate Boulevard in Horn Lake, consisting of 3.0 acres plus or minus. The Horn Lake Planning Commission recommends approval of the request to the Board of Aldermen with the following conditions attached to it, A through F.
Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other comments?
Who seconded that?
Mercer, Commissioner Mercer? Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Egner,
Yes.
Yeager, Vidal,
Yes.
Stokes. Yes. Little, yes. Mercer
Yes.
and McGann, absent.
It is passed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, on to next case, 2095, a request for subdivision final plat named DeSoto Commons A-11 commercial subdivision located approximately at 6701 Interstate Boulevard. Address is unassigned and unofficial in Horn Lake by Creative Construction LLC, developer and owner, and Houston Engineering PLLC, engineering company, for land zoned as PUD, consisting of approximately 3.01 acres plus or minus. Intended land use is for a motel. I will turn this over again to Director Barr.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for reading that. Again, this is another subdivision request. It's in a similar area of town, along basically existing Interstate Boulevard. Next slide. Again, this just states the definition of minor subdivision, which this constitutes. That's what's listed there. Go ahead and slide. Excuse me, move the slides. You're doing fine. Continue on. And continue on some more. There we go. Thank you. This particular slide is showing kind of a summation of the area and what's proposed. There is an existing parcel there now, but this would make it larger through the platting process. And what's proposed is 3.1 acres plus or minus. Proposed number of lots is 1. Is there any floodplain at play? Yes. And you can see that, and that's what this slide or visual help is trying to show. And there's 3 colors on the slide. The 100-year floodplain, thank you, Daniel, is showing the kind of like the light pink color, which is the 100-year floodplain. And then the 500-year floodplain, which is the light kind of yellow color, which is more towards the northeast portion of what's proposed for the plat. And then you see the floodway, which is down towards the lower hand, left-hand portion of the slide, which has kind of like that light tan or brown color, which would actually be the floodway, which is the highest level of restriction through the city's floodplain ordinance and federal regulations as well. Maybe go back to that last slide. Yeah, thank you. No public road is proposed. Interstate Boulevard does exist and would be along the right-hand side or the east portion of the plat. And then the water and sewer would be the Horn Lake Water Association as the provider in the area. The zoning is PUD, which is the planned unit development. In this case, it's another portion of the existing DeSoto Commons PUD. So now we get into more of subdivision specifics. In this particular case, talks about easements. What's proposed is met. They would, as far as required through the subdivision regulations. This particular slide deals with the general suitability. Again, I like to reference this as kind of like a planning double check to make sure as far as what's proposed with the plat is in keeping with the area, excuse me. So to the west is also PUD type zoning, and the current land use is volunteer grass and trees and more 100-year floodplain. To the north is M1 or light industrial zoning with more volunteer trees and grasses. To the east, across the road, is a different type of zoning, PBP to be exact, which stands for Planned Business Park. And then to the south is back to PUD, and then also Interstate Boulevard, some utility power lines, undeveloped areas, and then more volunteer trees and grass, and the floodway, which we saw from the previous slide. Excuse me. Here we've got setbacks from the plat is showing front of 50 feet and the side of 0 and the rear of 20 feet. Required per the PUD zoning is the front setback of 50 feet, side of 10, and the rear of 10. Note the setbacks are applicable for a building up to 35 feet in height. The PUD refers to the city's C-2 zoning, which has been replaced by the city's C4 zoning. Building setbacks for structures taller than 35 feet have to be set back at 1 feet for 1 foot greater than a structure of 35 feet in height up to a maximum 120 feet high. So this particular slide shows, talks about utility providers. A change that would be needed would be that the provider would be the Horn Lake Water Association and not the City of Horn Lake. And like we saw with the last case, here we get into actual minimum standards, different standards required. I'll just kind of let you glance, read on those slightly. Basically, staff comment here with item D, existing wordage should suffice regarding the topic of drainage. As far as E, as far as what's noted on the plat, the sidewalk representations should suffice. Next slide. Then we get into item F, which has to do with water supply, and G, which sanitary sewer supply. There's both a note number 2 on both sheets of the plat. This note says the City of Horn Lake is the provider, but again, please, we would ask the applicant to update that so it would be correct as the Horn Lake Water Association Incorporated as the provider of both of those services. Next slide. And then K, like we saw with the last case, erosion and sediment control. It's essentially met with the notes that's proposed through the plat, but we would add, we would ask if they would add the word sediment to this expression as well, because we feel that would be a better expression, that they note that the drainage and erosion and sediment control. And so we get to the possible motion. So staff has supplied a possible motion of approval with just three changes. Item A, the PUD setback should read front 50 feet, sides and rear 10 feet. Please update that on all spots. Again, this is applicable to structures of height of up to 35 feet. B, change the utility notes that the water and sewer provider would be the Horn Lake Water Association and not the City of Horn Lake. And C, to the note number 2 on the plat about meeting the city standards about drainage and erosion control, please add the word sediment control as well to sheets, both sheets 1 and 2. conclude the presentation unless you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for Director Barr?
I have one. Since this is in the 100-year floodplain, will they be required to bring that land up to a specific height?
Yes, very good question. Yeah, because the development is proposed in the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain for the city, any development that would occur there would have to meet the city's floodplain requirements, which also would be in keeping with MEMA, the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency as well.
Any other questions? Do we have the applicant? Anything you'd like to add?
Okay.
You got your name from
Okay, that's fine. We'll take care of these items, and on the plat, it does have the base flood elevation for the site, and it shows one base flood elevation at one end of the site and another one on the other end. We mapped it out on the plat just like it is on FEMA's map, so that in the future, if anybody's buying it, they will know that it is in the floodplain, and there is, there will be stipulations to build a certain way.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions?
What's the name of the hotel that's going to be built here again?
I'll have to refer that to Ron.
The Patel Hotel?
Ron Patel from Creative Constructions. Yeah, I'm planning to get like an extended stay America. It's a franchise.
Okay,
So there'll be all extended stay rooms.
okay.
And if not, there are other options, but since 6 months I've been working with them. So most probably with the area, we don't have any extended stay product other than just one. So this will be the second one. With seeing the development in the city, warehouses and commercial coming, I think that will be the best product. And it is owned by Blackstone, so it is a very high-end, nice hotel.
That'll be right next to the gas station where the trucks stop, and the truckers can do extended stay, right?
No, it's not there. It's on this side of the road. So it's more closer towards the Drury Inn when we come in. It's on the right. And the gas station is to the very end.
Okay, close enough.
So question, would this have interior common area hallways, or would it have exterior doors?
It is interior, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. In the note, it said that the plot does not follow the existing parcel line because you may or may not extend. Have you decided if you're gonna make the existing parcel larger? Have you made a decision on that?
Actually, before the parcel was like 2 acres, 2.3 or something. So to fit that nice hotel property, and we are going to do it like a high story. So we went ahead and, extended it to 3 acres, which is more than what we need, so.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
Make a motion. After review of the applicant case number 2095 SDFP, a request for a one lot commercial subdivision final plat for an intended motel land use with the plat proposed to be the DeSoto Commons A11 commercial subdivision at about 6701 Interstate Boulevard in Horn Lake, consisting of 3.1 acres plus or minus. The Horn Lake Planning Commission recommend approval of the request of the Board of Aldermen with the following conditions attached to it, A through C.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Egner,
Yes.
Yeager, Vidal,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Little, yes. Mercer,
Yes.
McGinn. That's it.
All right, motion is passed. Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, moving on to our next case, case number 2093, a request for a subdivision final plat named the Space Box West for a one-lot commercial subdivision located approximately at 4484 Goodman Road. This is addressed as unofficial and unassigned in Horn Lake by York Development, landowner and developer, and IPD LLC Engineering or Design for land zoned as C4 Planned Commercial District, consisting of 7.89 acres plus or minus. And once again, we will turn this over to our wonderful Director Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just go ahead and scroll up there. I won't dwell on some of the slides that we've seen in previous cases, so I think we'll just go, Daniel, when you first see the first picture, where you see like a picture or aerial photography. There you go. Thank you. So yeah, just to kind of sum this one up, subject property is the C4, and you can see the subject property highlighted in the blue box on the screen. Any 100-year floodplain? No. So it's different than the last case. So in this particular case, there's no 100-year designated floodplain whatsoever. The size, as stated earlier, 7.89 acres in size. The number of lots that's proposed is 1. The public water supplier would be the city of Horn Lake. Sanitary sewer, that would be the city of Horn Lake as well. And you can see there on that, you can see Goodman Road on this kind of the lower end, which would be on the south side of the proposed plat. And then you can see Tealwood Drive and then also Allen Drive coming up from the south as they approach Goodman Road. There's Skate Odyssey, which exists now, and we'll see that here in the upcoming slides. It's to the west of the subject property, and then the Goodman Road Baptist Church to the east of the subject property. So I've got a few field photos on this particular case, just to kind of help you orient your place or your spot in town. So this one's looking just straight ahead due north across Goodman Road. I'm actually standing in the middle of Tealwood Drive, and then so you can see the subject property there with the grass and the trees. This one, similar type photo, but it's looking to the northwest. Also across Goodman Road, you can see the subject property there. And then the Skate Odyssey is in the back, that building in the background there. So it's also looking northwest. And you can see the area of trees, the areas that are trees, that is part of the application area. And there is an existing fire hydrant there on the north side of Goodman Road. So that's a good sign. So you actually have the proposed plat here on this particular slide. There are some existing easements that are in place. One is a 100-foot wide transmission line. You can see that along the plat, along its north side and west side. And there is an existing power line easement coming up into the center. According to the applicant, that's to be removed. Go ahead. So now we get into, like where we saw with the other plats, this is the general suitability. And so I've listed basically the character of the neighborhood as far as existing zoning and land uses. So to the north, we have that A-R, which is the agricultural residential type zoning. And there's a few residences on the larger lot parcels. To the south, you go across Goodman Road. To the south, we've got PUD zoning with single-family residential uses. To the east is C4. There's religious institutional land use. And to the west of the subject property, also the C-4 commercial indoor skating rink. So we move into the minimum standards, as we see fairly often in the review of these plats. So there was really no mention of site drainage on the plat, so we're asking the applicant to address that under item D there. Under item E, no sidewalks were proposed, and so we're going to have them put a note on there that they're going to add a sidewalk to the development as well. They could do that. Next slide, please. Then going on to water and sewer supply. Yeah, we'd ask them to add the locations of water and sewer. That would be the providers to the property, the subject property. And then under item K, they're actually felt what they had provided was meeting the notes on erosion and sediment control. So that was really good. So we get to possible motion here of recommendation. If you'd find we concur with that, then We'd add 3 conditions. A, add a note of how drainage will be handled via the subdivision plat. B, add a note of the requirement to install sidewalks to the plat per city standards. And C, add location of public water and sanitary sewer lines and their providers to the plat. That would conclude the presentation.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Director Barr?
Yes. So Director Barr, have A to C been addressed by them, or we can just ask what are their plans meeting A to C?
I would just ask the applicant tonight, because with what happens with a lot of these cases, depending on when I do the PowerPoint and when I talk back basically to the applicant, sometimes they're able to address them and I don't have to get a chance to update them here. So I would just ask the applicant tonight and see where they're at. I think they're working on, I think I've actually seen some updated stuff on this. So I would just, good question though.
Any other questions for Director Barr? All right, and is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, all those have been addressed. The only question that I have is, we don't typically show the location of water and sewer. We will show the providers, but do we show the locations of the actual lines on the plat or during site plan?
If you have, basically I think what they're after is like the water main or sewer main in the vicinity. So even if it doesn't go to the exact property, if it kind of shows where it's at in the neighborhood, that kind of gives us a gist of where they're going to come from. So. Or if they're, let's say they're off plat, like say you've got the actual diagram, and let's say they're off plat or off the diagram, if you just list this, who it would be, I think that might suffice as well.
Does any commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, you said it has, you have the on-demand concept. Can you explain that a little bit?
The on-demand? What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
This is the one. What type storage are you going to have on this?
It's the same thing that we reviewed the first time.
For the previous one?
Now, this one's going to be a 3-story. I think it's 27,000 a level, so 80,000 total.
Okay.
It's going to be more drive-up units than there is RV, but we're still working that out based on the demand.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Yes.
If I may interject, I should have stated it earlier. At this case, this plat is basically being done by at-risk by the owner, because the C4 zoning doesn't actually give the property rights for the mini storage type land use, and they understand that. So I would expect they would come back probably with a custom PUD, probably before the end of the year.
All right, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right,
After review of application case number 2093, SBFP, a request for one lot commercial subdivision, final plat called Spacebox West, consisting of 7.89 acres plus or minus. The Horn Lake Planning Commission recommends approval of the request to the Board of Aldermen with the following conditions attached to it, A through C.
all right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Egner?
Yes.
Yeager? Vidal?
Yes.
Stokes?
Yes.
Little? Yes. Mercer?
Yes.
McGann, absent.
All right, it's been approved. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. All right, and it looks like our last case for the evening, case number 2097. A request for a site plan and design review for the property located at 4300 Goodman Road West by Ian Altman, engineer and design, and WB Horn Lake LLC developer for land zoned as C4 Planned Commercial District for a restaurant. And we'll turn it back over to Director Barr.
All right, thank you. So now we're shifting gears once again more to like where we started with the site plan design review. Got to really compliment actually all the applicants tonight, even though most of them have left, but in particular with this, they've been very diligent in trying to meet the city's standards. They've been working with the city going way back to December of last year, and this is really an example of, at least this, what we're trying to achieve as staff, where there's not much that's technically not met. We want this like anticlimactic point where you just say, okay, it's met, you know, so there's not as much thrill there, but it's, you know, but it goes smoothly. So we're looking for stuff to run smoothly. So, so again, to shift back to site plan design review, break that into 3 parts. We have architectural design, site plan layout, and then the landscaping. So I'll let Daniel scan through there until we see some pictures. There we go. And so it's basically just showing in black and white form different facades is what's proposed. But they do meet the 20% glass minimum for the south side. I think they're in at 21%, so that's good. Yeah, for the east facade, which is not a public-facing facade, it's like a almost glass. I think it's probably over 50% glass as a design, so that's good. Oops, I'm going the wrong way here in my presentation. Yeah, go ahead and scroll through that, Daniel. Again, where it says here on the site plan, if it's approved, it's good for a year. And here we have a layout of the site plan. It shows the building location highlighted in the yellow with the, I think I got a pink box around it. And Goodman Road is on the bottom of the slide, which is to the south. They've got sidewalks proposed, the dumpster location. And we go on to the landscaping standards. You could scroll through that there, Daniel. They've done a really good job. We've got streetscape type B for the south side of the property, and they're meeting that with the width, both the widths and the plantings that are proposed. And then the interior lot minimum, the city has for a design requirement of 20% as landscaped at a minimum, and they're coming in at about 35% of the whole property. So they're doing really well there. It helps on that south side, and then along the east side, there's some width to those, and so that really helps in the area and boosts up that percentage. So we've got a possible motion here for approval with 2 conditions. Things I didn't touch on previously. A, add 1 off-street parking space or have the applicant clarify when regular delivery times are scheduled. I think with some of the other restaurants in town, they were going to have their delivery times when they were basically closed. So we didn't make them actually put a designated off-street parking or, loading spot in. So that if you could get some clarity from the applicant on that. And then item B, require that the 50 off-street parking spaces be provided or accept less than that based upon a design exception request by the applicant. So they're right at the 50 now, but obviously if they redesign to put in somewhere off-street loading, they may lose a parking spot or 2. Kind of depends on where they put it. Kind of depends on their hours of operation and when they would have deliveries and that sort of thing. So that would conclude the presentation.
All right, do I have any questions for Director Barr?
Mr. Barr, I know there's been times where we extended the, the period of site plan approval. Was this the same thing? Because I know we did some before. I know we had one for the drive-through.
Or is that a conditional use that we've done that before? I can't.
Oh, maybe you're thinking on a conditional use.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
That might be it, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the conditional use, depending on the type of applications that's before you, you could go with a 1-year or a 2-year or a 10-year or whatever you thought was most appropriate. I know in other jurisdictions I've worked with, we had like a big solar like farm or a place that went in, and due to the longevity of that particular facility, I think they put in like a 35-year time limit on the conditional use permit. So, I mean, so it's kind of just try to fit what seems appropriate to a particular request that's before you.
So every year they would have to come back before the board?
So, well, no, obviously this is they're wanting to do a restaurant and it's zone C4, which would permit a restaurant by use, by right. So there would not be any conditional use, and so the drive-through component of that is actually permitted by right as well, so you don't have to look at that.
And then, I guess what Commissioner Stokes is asking is on the site review that we're doing here, when it says 1 year, it just means they have 1 year to start, and
Yeah.
with once it's already there, they don't have, I mean, that's.
That's correct.
There's nothing
Yeah.
to be repeated later.
Right, basically a year to start, and if they really feel that they're running short of time at the end, they could, I think the
An
zoning.
extension.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance states a property owner or developer applicant can, through a letter, through the Board of Aldermen, ask for a time extension on an approved site plan.
Okay, that was the question. Okay. Any other questions for Director Barr? All right, is the applicant here? If you just give us your name and address?
That's Jason Bowley. My address is 308 Juniper Way, McMurray, Pennsylvania, 15317.
All right, thank you, and we're glad that you're here. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
No, I think Chad covered it all.
All right, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, the question would be on number 2, the off-street loading issue.
Right.
Have you addressed that, and where?
So
Not
the
gonna be
delivery
located.
trucks for Whataburger is open 24/7. So the delivery trucks come off peak hours, typically between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. And they just pull up to that first drive aisle. We have kind of like a loading ramp to the door that's to the left of the entrance from this view. So the delivery truck just pulls in and parks in the drive aisle closest to the building.
Mr. Barr, is that okay?
2 to 4.
So one thing, I was making notes or whatever, I was partly listening or whatever. So did you address like when they normally would do their deliveries? Is it all over the?
Yeah, it's always between like 1 a.m. and 5 a.m.
Okay, so volumes probably would be at a minimum,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, anybody coming through that time of night's usually just going through the drive-through.
So is that time of night, is the actual, the restaurant in seating portion, is that closed then, or?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. That's a good question. I don't know if the seating portion is closed or not.
And do they, like for employees, do they have like a designated spot where the employees are supposed to park, or can they just park anywhere?
I think they have the employees park furthest away from the building.
It sounds like it'd be acceptable, they would just load as close as they could get to the building, and it wouldn't be in the drive-through lanes.
Yeah, I mean, Whataburger is pretty particular about their operation standards, and this is what we do at every location, and they don't have any issues with it.
Did you not mention just when you first got up there that it was open 24 hours a day for business?
Mm-hmm.
But you still don't know, you was asked about the parking for the delivery. How is it going to interfere with it? That's what I think the question was, or that's what I understood the question to be.
Yeah, so the delivery truck won't interfere with parking because,
But you said you didn't know the first time.
well, I mean, there'll be plenty of parking spaces available with the delivery truck. Like, he would only be blocking those few spaces up next to the building, not even all of them, like maybe 5 or 6 of them.
Well, I don't think it's going to be that busy at 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, like the drive-through will not be blocked by the delivery truck, and typically anybody coming through at that time of night is going through the drive-through. I'm not even sure if the restaurant inside part is open. It might just be drive-through only. So the drive-throughs will not be blocked.
I have a question, kind of, Mr. Barr, based on what he said, would we need to address that and let it reflect in the motion?
Well, he could, he could ask for a
So we
design.
at least know that that's their plan, to
Do you,
where they're gonna park during.
do you know what your delivery standards are in South Haven?
Delivery,
I mean, delivery times?
the window is between like 1 a.m. and 5 a.m.
That is the window. You know that's the window? I'm a big fan of Whataburger. I was in Terrell, Texas for 4 years in seminary school, so
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big Bob fan. So that's about the time I used to go doing security, working security.
There you go.
I guess we should put in there 1 to 5.
Do we need to put a time, or have they addressed the issue, Director Barr? We don't want to put stuff in there and then they go outside that time for whatever.
Right.
I'm just-
I would stay away from the time frame, just because, what if the truck gets there early, or if it gets there a little bit late or whatever, and it falls outside that time frame. To me, it seems like it's, where you have low volumes, it's at night or whatever, I can see where most the traffic at that time would be through the drive-through, and it may be exclusively through the drive-through, that if they park, on that north side, it'd be east of where they've got the handicap spots designated, and just kind of parked along there, kind of perpendicular, if you will, to the striping. To me, that would seem to be suffice or sufficient, but, maybe you want something more specific, I don't know.
Not that we want something specific, but I just want to know if we need to have something there to say this is where they're gonna park when we make the motion. So they decide to park somewhere else or do something different, we have something specified. That's basically my question. So you're gonna say where,
Yeah.
It's, they say one thing, and tomorrow, if there's no specification, they come up and park blocking people or move so do you see a need for it, because it said in the thing that they need a designated area, so
Yeah, I think if they were to designate a spot,
that's what I'm saying.
it would probably take up a couple parking spaces. Let's say if it was, where you see those 3 separate islands there, and then you see the parking stalls in between there. If they doubled down, maybe you could have, I don't know if they could post a sign and say loading spot, at certain times a day. And then the truck could pull in there or whatever, and then they could just load out the back and roll across the driveway or whatever into the building, and then they could just pull on out when they're done. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know what
That sounds good.
what Jason thinks.
At least there'll be some sort of note that they're loading this time in case.
Yeah, that sounds fine. We could put up any sort of sign you wanted.
Director Barr, may I ask, what did we do for the McDonald's that's open 24/7? That would be across the street from this particular.
I think both with McDonald's and Wendy's, they said their delivery times were basically similar to this or whatever, but I think they weren't, McDonald's might be open 24/7. I don't know about the Wendy's or whatever. So they basically asked for that to be waived, and that was granted. So if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Chairman,
There, yes.
I'm on the website for the Whataburger in South Haven, and their dine-in is open from 6 a.m. to midnight.
Yeah, so they'll be,
So the dining will be closed, it'll be what's going through the drive-through, and I don't know, I can't remember if McDonald's is, that one across the street is open, if their dining's open 24 or not, but I know their drive-through is, so I just figure, trying to figure out, so what we did there, is this would be a similar situation.
So they'll be able to use the majority of the parking lot at that time of the night, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, do we have a motion?
I have a motion. After review of application case number 2097 SPDR, a request for the site plan and design review for a restaurant proposed at 4300 Goodman Road West in Horn Lake, consisting of 1.49 acres plus or minus with C4 zoning, the Horn Lake Planning Commission approves of the request with the following conditions attached to it. And that would be, are we going to waive?
I mean, do we have any conditions due to the fact that unless you're going to just waive the parking spot? And if we're waiving the parking spot, then they already meet the 50 off-street parking. Is that correct, Chad?
That is correct. I guess in the motion, then I would just say that with the intent to waive that requirement, and then with that, then the 2 conditions, they fade away.
Okay, we have a motion to waive the off-street parking.
Okay.
which means there's no conditions other than that. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Egner,
Yes.
Yeager, Vidal,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Little, yes. Mercer,
Yes.
McGinn, absent.
All right, motion has passed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other comments or anything that any of the commissioners would like to bring up?
I'm buying the first Bob at Whataburger.
Anything from you, Director Chad, Director Barr?
No, I don't know if you've been following some of the alderman hearings or whatever, but if they vote in the budget and stuff, then we'll be getting some new staff. We'll be adding staff to planning. And then the code enforcement, which is over in the police department, would be coming over, and we'll still, there's 4 slots there, but there's only 2 filled, so we'd be doing some hiring there. And then we're still waiting for the comprehensive plan to kick off. It's a matter of when Orion Planning Group can start that. It could be late September, it could be October. So it hasn't went away. You know, there's still an advisory group on that, and I didn't want to have a meeting where there was nothing to meet about on that. That's a good way to wear people out, to come together, and we got nothing to talk about, you know, so. We will have quite a few things on the agenda next month, and at least for next month, I think it's going to be more about rezoning requests and stuff. So, so the nature of things has changed a little bit, so that makes it interesting.
All right,
I have a question. Currently, how many code enforcers do we have?
Commissioner Vidal, currently we have 2.
Is that a maximum or?
Well, I guess there's 4 positions, and so, and briefly for about a month this year, we had all 4.
Okay.
And then one of them basically matriculated off to be one of the policemen, or police ladies, and then another person left. So then they went from their 4 down to 2, and so I met actually with Deputy Chief Scott Brown today, and because he wanted me to be involved in the new hirings, which is very nice, you know, instead of, they could have just probably went ahead and tried to hire another person or 2. So that was one of the things I was doing before I came here. I was looking over some of the applicants, and so we'll be in touch with them, and hopefully we can get some good quality people and add to the staff, because I know that the city back in, what was it, June, voted to do the rental housing regulation aspect of things, and so we'll need code for that. And so, yeah, there'll be a lot of changes happening, you know, in our department through the rest of the year. It's be like riding a surfboard. That's what it's going to feel like.
And the reason I ask is my neighborhood needs some real, I mean, my neighborhood is so bad, it's like the dumpster. I live in Kentwood subdivision.
Okay.
And right Waverly going down to Nail Road, it is bad. I mean, I don't know how much worse it can get.
Wow.
So,
Well, I do know that the code enforcement people they have seemed to be doing huge volumes, because
Yeah.
I mean, Deputy Chief Scott Brown, he shared to me, just going back to, I think it was the first part of April through like present day, like today or last week, that they'd made like over 1,000 contacts. So that's with 2 people, and at one time only having 4. That's doing a lot of stuff.
So, one
Yeah.
other thing. So as planning commissioners, say we're in the neighborhood and we see stuff not going right, you know, isn't it our responsibility to kind of like report that to code enforcers?
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that through either planning or it's still over in PD. I do need to note that in this time of year, what I mean by this time of year, in the growing season, there is a part-time person that's just designated for like grass and weeds and that sort of thing. We do have Henry that does that.
So
Mr.
if we
Henry's
have,
great, so that's good to have. So anyway, we can discuss this later, you know, on this part, but I want to thank everyone for attending. Thanks, Ms. Tammy. Her presence here is great, and our IT guy is, I guess, Mr. Daniel. So we're glad to have him. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the
I am
same?
not.
Okay.
That's it.
so if I have a neighbor with